I think everybody's, just thinking about Israel all the time. So I said to the girl who works behind the desk over there at the spin class, I was like, oh, I'm going to be away for 2 weeks. I'm traveling. And she said, where are you going? And I said, I'm going to Israel. And she goes, oh, fun. And I'm like, I literally looked around. I was like, what? And she's like, that's so nice. I'm like, do you know that Israel's in a war? And she's like, oh, well, be safe. And like, that was the conversation.
Welcome to the Unspeakable podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Daum. The podcast officially resumes next week, but I'm dipping in here with a special episode. It's a visit from someone who's a regular guest around here, ChayaLeah Sufrin. ChayaLeah has the wonderful and informative Ask a Jew podcast, and she's usually here with her co-host, Yael Bartor. But I wanted to share this conversation about her recent trip to Israel, where she went with her family during Hanukkah. ChayaLeah, as you may know, is an Orthodox Jew. She is the director of the Hillel at Cal State Long Beach in California, Hillel being an international Jewish campus organization, the largest in the world. On her podcast with Yael, ChayaLeah talks a lot about what it's like to be part of an Orthodox community. She is Hasidic. Yael is a secular Israeli, by the way. And while ChayaLeah definitely has a very specific point of view about Zionism and Judaism, she's an incredibly thoughtful and curious person. And her reflections about this trip, I just thought were really interesting and valuable. So we talk here about what life is like these days for Israelis, what we know and don't know about the hostages that remain in captivity. She talks about what it's like to be Jewish, not just Jewish, but very obviously Jewish in America right now, including in Kansas, where she recently went with her family. I want to be clear that this is not being presented as a political discussion. Obviously, politics come into play, but mostly we just talk about what things are like in Israel right now for everyday citizens. Needless to say, life in Gaza is a different story. That would be a valuable conversation as well. And in the coming weeks, I will be covering that perspective more, as much as I can anyway. But for now, this is what it is. I will also say that we recorded this on December 21st, and the following week, the New York Times did publish a story detailing some of what we know about the conditions the hostages were held in, as well as specifics about the attacks on October 7th. This conversation is not that graphic, but again, we do get into some things that were new to me as of the recording. So I think you'll find it interesting. And because it's ChayaLeah, we laugh a lot, even when we're not supposed to. Finally, this is a premium episode. If you are a paying subscriber, you will hear the entire thing, which is just under an hour. If you are a non-paying subscriber, you will get the first 15 minutes. If you want to hear the rest, go to meghandom.substack.com and join for just $7 a month. I've got a new essay up as well. So here's my conversation with ChayaLeah Sufrin. ChayaLeah, welcome back to The Unspeakable.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are here without your co-host.
I know, this is the Ike and Tina Turner moment. I dumped her. I'm done with her.
Who's who? Are you Ike or Tina?
Who is the abusive one? Him?
Ike.
That's for sure, Yael. Whatever she wants, I give in to everything.
That's kind of how Sarah is for me on A Special Place in Hell.
That's why we have to do our own thing.
I know. I think each of us need another podcast. That's definitely what we both need for ourselves.
I know.
Well, I wanted to have you back for just a little special episode here, because I know you just got back from Israel. And I know I was really interested, and I think people are, in general, interested to hear about just what it's like there. What's happening, because obviously we don't even know what we're seeing half the time. So,
right.
Yeah, why don't you just tell us, first of all, I know you went there with your family.
That's right.
Why did you go? What gave you the idea to go to Israel?
So, I mean, anybody who knows me or listens to my podcast knows that I love Israel. I was there 4 times in the past year, but all of those times were for professional reasons. And I haven't been with my kids in many years. And my kids have been for like camps and trips and we've all been, right? My husband's been, but we have not been together in many, many years. So we actually planned this trip in the summer. We thought, oh, it'll be great. We'll go for Hanukkah. It'll be really nice. I have 2 sons who live away from us. So we figured, oh, it'll be great for all of us to get together because I don't see them during the year. Anyway, long story short, we all know what happened October 7th. And initially we were like, well, is it okay to go? Is it not okay to go? And I just decided right away, like, we're going. I don't care. They need us. I need to be there. From October 8th, I wanted to go. And I just really believed, we would be okay and safe. And that was it. And we went. So
what is it like on the ground? I mean, what did you start to see when you got off the plane and went into the cities?
It's noticeable the second you walk off the plane. Ben Gurion Airport is usually insane, especially around this time of year, December. I was there exactly a year ago. I was there last Hanukkah with 40 students. It was packed. And the airport this time was empty. Just El Al is flying. There are no other airlines flying right now.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's just really quiet. I mean, passport control, everything is just empty, weird, eerie. And then once you start driving, like physically, I could see just a tremendous amount of like Israeli flags everywhere and, signs that say things like, together we will be victorious. You know what I mean? Like a lot of that kind of stuff that you don't usually see around. Obviously, every building, every billboard is about the hostages. And guess what? No one tears it down. So it's really nice. They stay up. And you just sense, the whole country's mood is a wartime mood, and it's very different. There just aren't tourists. Usually if you've been to Israel, like there's buses everywhere filled with groups of Christian pilgrims and Jewish youth groups and, birthrights. And like, it's a country that is filled with tourists and it's just empty. So it was weird.
When you say a wartime mood, what does that mean?
A seriousness. Everybody's traumatized in Israel. It's I don't know if people who, I don't know how to say this delicately because it's going to sound kind of obnoxious, but like, I don't know if non-Jews can really understand how traumatized Jews are, and especially Israelis, over October 7th. And it's something it gets worse every day. It's not like it happened and now everybody's recovering. It's actually getting worse. Every day is another day that the hostages aren't released. Every day is another day that soldiers are dying in Gaza. And it's like announced, in the evening or in the morning, which soldiers were killed the day before. There's been tragedy after tragedy. While I was in Israel, the 3 hostages were killed by accident by the IDF. This is stuff that like, it tears everybody apart in Israel and you just feel it, and it's, Jews are resilient in general, and it was Hanukkah. And so you can see that people were definitely trying to celebrate, but it was different. There's definitely like a dark kind of feeling over everybody.
I understand you went to visit the site of the Nova Music Festival.
Yeah. So while we were there for a very short time, we were only there for like 6 days, and we didn't really do much. We really stayed in Jerusalem the whole time. It's not like like I said, it's not a time to start gallivanting and doing trips, and besides, my kids have seen most things, so it was fine. We were in Jerusalem, but one day we decided to go down. We wanted to just do our part, whatever, I hate this phrase, but like bear witness and kind of do our part. So we have friends who are super brave people, and they organized a day for us. We didn't know what to expect, honestly, because it's an active war zone. It's not like a museum or memorial. Like, it's an active war zone, and we didn't know, but I was like, we're doing it. So, and of course I have 4 sons. They were thrilled and couldn't wait to like go down close and see what's up. So we had, by the way, interrupt me if I get too long and boring, because I'm just going to keep talking.
No, please.
Stop me. But the first place that we stopped when we got, so by the way, Jerusalem to like, the Gaza envelope, as they call it, is like, maybe an hour drive or 50-minute drive. So the first place we went to, was the place where they've moved all the cars. I don't know if you saw those pictures of like at the festival, there were just hundreds of cars that were like burnt and shot up. So they moved all of those cars into another location. So we stopped there, and it's kind of like blocked off, but you can see it. And there was like a soldier there, whatever. There were a bunch of soldiers. I mean, there's soldiers everywhere and police and everything. So we were talking to them, and when they heard, what I do, the fact that I'm a Hillel director at a university here, the head of the army base over there decided that he wanted to give me a tour of this kind of car graveyard. So I went with him, and it was really something. I mean, just looking at these cars like burnt to a crisp, people died in them. There were cars that weren't burnt that were just riddled with bullet holes. You see some of the cars that came in from Gaza. The worst thing I saw was an ambulance. He took me around like to a side part. I mean, it's a war crime. Like, it was an ambulance. There were a bunch of girls hiding in the ambulance, and the terrorists found them, shot them all, burnt the ambulance. The ambulance, fell over on its side. And they thought actually that some of those girls had been kidnapped. But when they picked up the ambulance a couple days later, they found their bodies underneath. And it was just extremely eerie and sad. I mean, and it still smells like burnt, like you can still smell it, the whole area. So that was like the first stop. And then we went to the Nova Festival location in Re'im. And again, I mean, we heard, 270 people were murdered there. Tons of people were kidnapped from there. And it's, when you're standing there, it's just, I couldn't help but like be a little shaky, crying, watching my kids. They have like all these posters, but like life size of all the people who were killed there. They have it set up so you can like walk amongst it and see the faces.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and you could imagine who's at a music festival, like young, beautiful, like fun looking, people, and they were just mowed down, slaughtered over there. So I'm sure that area is going to be a memorial forever. Israel will build some kind of memorial there. Yeah, it was actually, while I was there, it was really interesting. It happened to be that the chief rabbi of Israel showed up. I mean, and we were the only people there, my little group, and then he pulled up with obviously a whole entourage. So I had a few minutes to talk to him, which was pretty interesting. And it was just, it was really, my kids, I could see on their faces that they were struggling. And then, while that's happening, by the way, I didn't even mention this, it's constant loud booms, like explosions, which every time you shake, like they're so loud, your body like shakes, the ground shakes. And those, I kept getting nervous, but the soldiers that were with us were like, don't worry, that's us shooting, not being shot at. So I was like, okay. I mean, I feel bad to say that, but it did make me feel a little better.
Is Gaza firing rockets and Iron Dome is stopping them? Is that what's happening?
That's happening, yes, every day. Yeah, they shoot lots of rockets at civilian centers. Friday night, so Jerusalem is generally out of they don't usually shoot rockets at Jerusalem, mainly because of the Temple Mount, and Jerusalem is, many Arabs live there, Muslims. But Friday night, after I lit candles for Shabbat, we walked from our apartment to the Old City to go to the Western Wall. And as we were walking, we got to the walls of the Old City, and the siren started. And I was with all my kids, and I was like, I started freaking out. And we didn't know what to do because there were no shelters around. So we started running towards the Jaffa Gate, to hide in the Jaffa Gate. And that's where like people were running to. And like, as we're walking and kind of running slowly, the rockets are right over our head, and we're watching them fly over, and then we're watching the Iron Dome blow them up in the sky. And there were like 3 or 4 rockets. I was
Had you ever seen anything like that before?
I have never been in a rocket like that. Not like that.
And what does a rocket look like? And what does it look like when the Iron Dome intercepts it?
It looks like a firework, kind of. And you see like an explosion in the sky. And it's high enough that like you can't, I mean, it's hard to tell how big it is really, but it's low enough that you feel like it's going to fall on your head. You know what I mean? So it intercepts it, it explodes it, and then there's like smoke and shrapnel kind of falling. So you're supposed to stay in your wherever you are hiding or covering your head for like 5 minutes because it has to like fall down. But I mean, that was like, it took me a couple of hours to calm down. I was
I can imagine.
And my kids obviously thought it was like the coolest thing that they've ever seen, seeing the Iron Dome in action. I'm like, okay, we saw it once. We never have to see that again.
Yeah, that's kind of a one-time thing.
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the Iron Dome, I know you're not a defense technology expert, but it's like, I think it's something that people like, they had this kind of theoretical concept of like, there's kind of like a Star Wars feeling to it up until recently. But like, how is it just like, what is actually happening? Like, it's not like it's manned. It's not like some person is intercepting. It's like senses these things coming, right?
No,
like,
people are actually manning it for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and it's not like
they're set
satellite.
up all over the country.
Okay.
And there are these like wooden, I mean, I took my students to like see them up close. So I kind of got an idea, but they're interceptors. And so basically what happens is when the rockets are coming in, people have to decide. I'm sure they use technology to help them make this decision, but they basically can tell where that rocket's going to land. So if it's going to land, I mean, thank goodness the Hamas doesn't have like great technology. So like they just shoot them. So if it's going to land in a field, Israel lets it land because they're not going to waste their, Iron Dome stuff on it. But if it's going to land anywhere where there are people or in a city or whatever, they try. And I don't know what the rate is, but it's upwards of like 97% of the time they're accurate. And it's
they are shooting something else to hit it and then sort of
It disarms it, blows it up.
So they okay, sorry, this is like so basic, but like, are they just aiming really well? Like what are they firing back?
It's a laser. I mean, I wish I knew. I think it's
Jewish space lasers.
Jewish space lasers. Wow,
sorry,
I feel stupid.
I could not resist. Sorry.
No, I wish I knew the technology better, but somehow they have some kind of technology that the United States helps Israel with that stops the rockets from coming in. I mean, it's a miracle.
Wow, and it's incredible.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to say, like, I'm very aware that, like, I'm talking about this, and I understand. I bet there are people who are thinking, like, don't you care about all the bombings in Gaza? Of course we do, and it would be nice if Hamas, who was given billions of dollars, they could build the same thing for their people if they wanted, but they instead choose to build tunnels and
they could build a lot of things.
Yeah, they could build bomb shelters, right? So just wanted to say that. I'm not like insensitive to like the suffering on the other side, but I can only tell my side of the story right now.
Yeah, well, no, and like I said, this does not need to be a political discussion. I just think people are really interested in like what is happening in Israel. So, I mean, one thing I wonder about is like, what do we know about the hostages? I'm assuming you had some kind of interaction with family. I mean, everybody's a family. I'm sure everybody there knows somebody who obviously was killed and or taken hostage. Like, is there a sense that there are negotiations going on? Like, what is the status of things?
It's very hard to tell. The government has been very closed-mouthed about all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, the families of the hostages are getting more and more desperate.
That was a taste of my conversation with ChayaLeah Sufrin. If you would like to hear the rest, and you should want to, it's really good, go to meghandom.substack.com and join for just $7 a month. In the meantime, I will tell you that ChayaLeah is the executive director of the Long Beach Hillel. Her podcast with Yael Bartor is Ask a Jew. Yael, by the way, has also been in Israel lately. She was actually there on October 7th. And if you follow her on Twitter, you know she's been doing some really cool stuff there. A lot to bring people's attention to just specific people in Israel and in Gaza as well, I believe. So you should go follow her there and listen to their pod. So Yael on Twitter is at YaelBT. That's YaelBT. You can also find ChayaLeah on Twitter and Ask a Jew podcast for sure you should know about. And if you're a regular listener to this podcast at all, you do know about it. In the meantime, I will be back next week for the official start of the 2024 season. So happy New Year. Thank you for listening and see you then.